So in this video we're going to be taking a look at The Lord of the Rings, The Art of the Return of the King. And I haven't called this a review because that's not what it's going to be, as literally everything I said about the art of the Fellowship of the Ring and the art of the Two Towers can be applied to this book, and I don't want to just repeat myself and bore the people who already saw those reviews. I'll just be continuing the list of sort of mini reviews for other Lord of the Rings movie related books that we started in the video for the Art of the Two Towers. So first up we have The Lord of the Rings sketchbook by Alan Lee, who, if you don't know, is an amazing illustrator who is one of the main people responsible for envisioning Tolkien's work on all sorts of official calendars and the illustrated editions of the books and so on. And then of course went on to eventually become one of the lead concept artists on the movies. I've actually looked through and considered buying this book many times, and despite the fact that there's really no problems with it or anything, I've just never felt especially compelled by it, which is weird because I've bought loads of books in the past just because Alan Lee illustrated them, and so a book by Alan Lee on The Lord of the Rings together sounds amazing. But just looking through it, it has never quite captured me. I really think that's because it's a black and white sketchbook, which are two things I'm not a big fan of. But that's just down to my personal tastes. I still think it looks like a really great book and well worth checking out so you can make up your own mind. And also he has a Hobbit sketchbook coming out soon. Additionally, more recently, John Howe has also released his own Lord of the Rings art book, but I actually have that one, so we'll do a full review on it later. There and Back Again, An Actor's Tale by Sean Astin. So apparently he is one of those pieces of shit who likes to use their involvement in a project to make a quick buck and desperately try to extend their stay in the limelight, which actually wouldn't be so terrible if it resulted in a good and useful book such as the one Andy Serkis did for his journey as Gollum. So based on the title of this book, which is taken directly from the subtitle of The Hobbit, the image of him as Sam, and the subtitle An Actor's Tale, one would assume this is a memoir of his time making these movies. In fact, some editions of the book even have the additional subtitle, A Behind-the-Scenes Look at The Lord of the Rings, but this is all complete bullshit. All of these elements are just there to piggyback off the movie's success and mislead you into buying what is mostly a whiny, navel-gazing autobiography. Now, yes, at least half the book is focused on The Lord of the Rings, but it's just really not a good read. Now, if you want to read about an actor's time making the movies that is actually good, besides the Andy Serkis book, which I reviewed previously, I strongly recommend that you go and check out Ian McKellen's website, as he has some great blog journals and photos on there that he's kept from a number of his movies, but the ones he did for The Lord of the Rings are called The Grey Book and The White Book. Even though they're not terribly deep, they are definitely much more worthy of being published than this cringy nonsense. Then we have the Frodo franchise, The Lord of the Rings and Modern Hollywood, which is one of those unofficial books and really the only one that's kind of good. Basically, it's more about the business side of the movies, specifically marketing, promotion, that stuff, and sort of the impact of the movie. I really like that it's taking a look at a more indirect area of the movie's histories, like marketing, because I really can't think of any other books that do that for one specific film or franchise, except Star Wars, I think. It's not necessarily the most engaging read, as it's quite information-dense and journalistic, but in a good way. But it feels like a proper book and not just like fan essays or something, and I was really surprised and happy by just how much of the stuff in this book was completely new to me, whether that's quotes or information. So that's really refreshing when you're someone who feels like they've read or heard everything about these movies. And I guess that's because it's not talking about the actual production of the movies, which we've seen and read a million times elsewhere. So getting a broader look at these ancillary areas of the films was the big draw of this book for me, which makes it sound like this is a really good and interesting book, which it is, except when it's not. It can be quite hit and miss with the content when it starts to veer away from discussing these movies directly. So one minute you'll be reading an amazing chapter about how the behind-the-scenes content for the DVDs was created, or the video games, or the licensing for the action figures, but Then you turn the page and you're reading a description of the apartment decor of some woman whose only connection to the movies is that she started an unofficial fan site that you've never heard of. So this is definitely not a book I'd recommend to every fan, but if you've read everything and still want more, then this could potentially be a good idea if you're interested in this sort of stuff and can find it for a reasonable price. But basically after that book, we're really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. There are a ton of fan guides, fan essay type books, fact books, biographies that are all unofficial, which is fine. I don't have a problem with unofficial books, but I do have a problem with the fact that they're all so bad that I promise that they're not even worth mentioning. Also, if you're looking around on eBay, you may see some like press books from Cannes or different premieres such as The Lord of the Rings, A Filmmaking Journey, which sounds good and rare, but unless you're the most serious collector, don't worry about those. Some look pretty fancy, but they're really just very short promo booklets. Also in the description, I've left a link to a really great resource, LOTR collector notes, which you might be interested in. There are also some books that aren't specifically on Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, but still heavily feature them, like books on Peter Jackson and Weta, but I'm going to be doing reviews on those in the next few weeks too. Also, if there are any noteworthy books that I haven't mentioned or done reviews on, definitely leave a comment below.